You're listening to Gospel Reign, where the truth, authority, and power of God's Word take center stage. Join Dr. Matt and Dr. Micah as they dive deep into the great doctrines of the Christian faith, explore how the gospel transforms our world today, and reflect on the stories that shape our walk with Christ. We hope you enjoy this week's episode of Gospel Reign.
All right, welcome back to the Gospel Reign podcast. Let's talk about outrage.
It's outrageous.
Outrageous. The age of outrage is the kind of the age that we're living in right now, especially with social media. So let's talk a little bit about that today. This is really big, and whether you realize it or not, whether you're really paying attention a lot. Some people don't. They don't get in the fray when it comes to, at least, especially social media outrage. But it spills beyond social media in the life of Christians a lot of times. And I think at least we need to have an honest conversation about it, all right? I see it a lot of times. So what has brought this up, at least for me, preparing for our conversation, is the social media post from last week. We're doing this in April of 2026. So the social media post that came out last week was Donald Trump's posting of a meme, or reposting, I think is what I understood. It was put together, or AI created, or something like that. Posted by somebody, and then he reposted it. Some kind of a picture of him kind of wearing this like robe and reaching out and touching a guy and healing him. There's all kind of other things going on in the picture, in the background, people around him, all that kind of stuff. Some weird stuff going on in the background too. Yeah. And then it just created just a firestorm on social media of people, and even some of my friends posting on social media like, this is an outrage, this is awful, this is sacrilegious. You got a president doing all this kind of stuff, and it gave me another example of that kind of outrage that's always out there. Sometimes it kind of, you get blips that are really big, at least among the Christian community. But there's outrage among all kinds of people on different platforms and social media.
You make a good point. It's like the world has its own outrage, but where we see it is when the Christian community just piles onto something, just like out of the blue. All of a sudden, everybody is commenting and spewing rage on one thing or another.
Yeah, and something has created an impulse, and it perhaps may be the right Christian impulse, but this impulse of a lot of Christians just to engage, right? All of a sudden engage, where people have not been engaging on pretty much anything other than posting their own family pictures and stuff. They all of a sudden feel the need to engage with some kind of a social thing.
Yeah, I wonder if it flows from, of course, this would be a lot of years in the making, but like something bad would happen in culture, whether it was a police-involved shooting or something like that. And I remember the language kind of changing, that if you are a ministry leader and you remain silent, then you're complicit in the issue. Yeah. And that puts this artificial pressure on people to just immediately say something, immediately speak out. Doesn't matter if what they're talking about is actually true or biblical or what, but they just got to say something, because if you don't, and that became known as virtue signaling.
Yeah, that's right.
Who are you signaling to by speaking out to this, that you're woke or that you're engaged with culture or whatever? Yeah. And so I think that's continued. Actually.
Yeah, I do too. And sometimes I have noticed, come back to bite people that have actually engaged, said something, because it's immediate. You got to say something immediately. And then after a time went by, maybe a few days, you find out that what they engaged on was actually not the way it looked. And then you kind of, it's foot and mouth disease, right? You kind of say, well, I don't, and then you just kind of be quiet for a little while, guys, just disengage. Like, so, but it's just that kind of pressure to immediately respond to certain things. That's why you get these big blips on the radar. It just creates a frenzy. It may not be wrong, it may be right, but we're just simply saying the outrage, whether good or bad, is just a real phenomenon, and I think especially because of social media. Not only because of social media, but I think in large part because of it.
I agree, and for me, the worst kind of channel for that is Twitter or X. I mean, at least my algorithm in Facebook, there's not a lot of hostilities going on in Facebook. Every now and then you'll see somebody whining about something or just going off. But Twitter, I for all intents and purposes have gotten away from Twitter. I don't even look at it anymore. Yeah. Because it just became so hostile, and it seemed like it was just an echo chamber. Whatever spark lit the fire, everybody is now engaged in this, this fire.
I can get caught up in that too. Twitter is the worst place for that, for me. Anyway, I have a Twitter account, or X, whatever that's called now, X. I have an account. I go look at it once in a blue moon, especially something registers like something that, or somebody that I know or follow, that they say something that I'm interested in. I look at it. But what's the worst is that you go to look at that one little thing, that one thing that they post, or one article that they've referenced or something like that. When you get back out of that, you're literally within seconds, I can be caught doom scrolling, and it's just maybe my algorithm, maybe it just knows my tendency toward hostility, my own hostility, but I can get caught in that, and man, it is violent, hostile, mean, angry, all kinds of things,
embarrassing,
embarrassing,
really.
not just in the secular world, plenty of that in secular, but among Christians, there's so much of that bickering and fighting about each other and against each other.
Yeah.
It almost feels kind of anonymous. It's just like you think you can do that anonymously and not be called on it.
Right.
And you're kind of arguing across the internet at each other without ever.
Because I've often thought, you're exactly right. I've often thought, if we were having a conversation, you'd never say that to my face that you just posted.
No, exactly.
You'd never say it like that. It would be very different. But you feel like you're behind a keyboard, so you can just say whatever you want to say with no repercussions.
Yeah.
You know that Donald Trump meme that you mentioned. I mean, for a very, very brief time, I thought, well, maybe I should say something about this, because I thought even accidental heresy is heresy. But
right.
But then you kind of watch the conversation go, and Christians are like starting to eat and chew up each other on, well, if you voted for him or you defend him or whatever, defend this, and it's like.
No, I'm going to one-up you with something else really bad. It's just, it's outrage. But, again, social media kind of creates that frenzy, again, good or bad. But let's talk about it, though, all right? Let's talk about what...
Because it is a frenzy. That's a good word.
It is a good... And I think, as pastors, we just want to try to give some pastoral counsel, if that's a good word, at least pastoral advice in some way to fellow Christians about how we think we could deal with that kind of outrage. It's not easy. I can get caught in the fray too.
We're all prone to it.
Yep, I'm prone to it. I have a stripe of anger that still runs in my bones, and from when I was young, and it can raise its ugly head once in a while. And if I'm not careful, I have to be careful. And anyway, I'm not saying all outrage is wrong. Right. There's righteous anger towards certain things, and a good Christian impulse towards certain things that are wrong. It's just trying to determine where that line is as a Christian. And again, that gets harder and blurs the lines because of social media, and it just becomes a little bit more difficult.
Agreed.
So anyway, let's talk about it. What do we do when something has spurred you on to this kind of conversation, though? And let's talk about that for just a minute, then we'll get on into kind of what we want to talk about. Lately, you've been reading a book, I think, and that book has at least spurred your mind to think about some of these things. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the book is called Unoffendable by Brant Hansen. And I think actually you were somewhere and somebody referred to this or did a talk on this book.
So one of our church members gave a speech to the organization that he leads, and some of that speech came out of that book on Unoffendable, and he recommended it to me. So I grabbed a copy of it, immediately recommended it based on his recommendation, and I haven't even picked it up off my shelf yet. I'm reading some other books right now.
Yeah.
But you took it up immediately and started reading it.
I did, and so I'm reading it on Audible, which that's another podcast probably debate.
You're listening to it on Audible. Yeah.
But it is, because the way I commute back and forth to work, I just got time in the car. I can make the most of it. And so I've really enjoyed it. It's simple, and you can tell that he has really wrestled with what's going on in culture, but just from a Christian perspective, he's saying do Christians have the right to outrage? And his answer is no. In fact, it's contrary to the way of Jesus that if you feel outraged, there's a way to deal with that in the gospel. And that kind of provoked me to think. And so as he's going through different aspects of the chapters, scriptures are coming to my mind. And I thought, I want to download this a little bit for our people. So I write an article every Monday for our church family. And this was kind of the core of it, around, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 9 scriptures that, like, how can we live unoffendable? His book intrigued me because it drove me back to Scripture, and so I wanted to say, how does the gospel come to bear in our lives? What does the Scripture say about dealing with anger or that feeding frenzy around certain things, and really how a Christian witness is maintained or damaged in whatever way we present ourselves or deal with outrage or being offended.
So I'm curious. I haven't read the book, but does he get into the issue of righteous indignation and the maybe a Christian impulse to, or in a right way to?
He definitely touches on it. If he unpacks it more, I hadn't gotten there yet. I'm probably 2/3 through the book.
Okay.
And but yeah, he does touch on it, because there are some things, as you said a minute ago, there are some things, moral evil and some other stuff that a Christian really cannot be silent about. Injustice, speaking up for those who have no voice, those kinds of things, very important, and we take that seriously.
Yeah.
But if everything is an offense, it just kind of waters everything down, and the things where you should be speaking out with righteous indignation, they're just background noise because all you do is rage all the time anyway.
It kind of flattens out everything, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, so let's talk about how in pastoral counsel advice, how do we deal with this? What do we do with kind of an outrage? What should be our response? Our first response, maybe. How do we kind of unpack our reaction to that when something is, like, again, social media, it's posted, it's inflammatory, at least for us, disagrees with our opinion, our belief, our theology, our whatever. What do you do first? I mean, like, do you just it's not immediately go to the keyboard, I'm certain.
Right.
It can't be that.
That's
It's
right.
got to be something else. What is that first thing?
Well, you're right. Outrage feeds on immediacy. I mean, you got to say something. You got to throw it out there. It doesn't matter. But biblical wisdom presents itself more. There's more of a restraint. And for example, James 1. James says it this way: you must be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. So he's putting a lot of different things together. And when you think about, he wasn't thinking about social media, but being quick to listen is, I see that. I'm not really sure what that is. I'm not going to jump to a conclusion without all the facts, or maybe there's something I need to know before I make some kind of judgment on it. So being quick to listen, slow to speak, it's just helpful in every way to navigate that, and slow to anger. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to deal with anger. But it really flows from, James is saying, if you're going to live this way as a Christian, our identity is very different from the world. So our reactions and our thoughts toward things in the world ought to be almost countercultural to the way the world is preaching. We're going to preach something different, and that is the gospel. And the transforming power of the gospel, my identity has changed. You and I were talking about this before we started recording, but it's like the world, people in the world, in the age of outrage, everybody seems to be walking around as if they've been wronged by something or everything.
Yeah.
And they deserve something. They deserve their rights on everything. It doesn't really matter what it is. But for a Christian, we don't walk around with that identity that I'm a wronged person. Quite the contrary. We recognize that we are the offenders. We are the ones who have wronged each other or God in particular, and the gospel has changed that. So forgiveness for us, when we come to saving faith in Christ and we've been redeemed, changes our orientation to whom much is given, much is required. If we've received all this grace from God, even though we are the offenders, can we not, duplicate that grace toward others who might be offending real or imagined.
Yeah. So the gospel matters when
it does.
It comes to
100%.
its bearing on ourselves. In James is really good. I think if we could embody that passage and learn to just stop for a minute, be quick to listen.
Yeah.
No matter if what we're listening to is offended us or not, it may be offensive, but be careful to be slow enough, process it in the right way before you speak. And I just don't think we practice that enough. And I'm speaking to myself. I'm preaching to the choir, right? I know myself, and I have that impulse in me too. But I will say that I have noticed the times when I choose to be quicker to hear, listen, slower to speak or respond, whether that's publicly, verbally, keyboard, social media, whatever. There's more fruit that has come from that being slower, process, be careful, think, and then speak after I'm informed and prayed up or whatever. There's more fruit that has been born from that rather than impulsiveness.
I'd say the same. Yeah.
And I think probably all of us are the same way. So I think this is just a good maybe pastoral takeaway is just when you feel that offense, at least stop and say, okay, I need to understand first. I'm not the victim in everything. Okay, be careful first and just say, should I be offended? And then think through it carefully first before responding. Don't go immediately to the keyboard or the phone.
Yeah.
And because when we bring the gospel to bear on us and on our whatever that issue is, it does matter in the way that I'm supposed to respond or think and respond.
And it's really dealing with that kind of pressure. And if outrage pressures us to some kind of immediate response, and I'm not saying this is easy, and I think James is basically he's telling us slow down a second, man. Just whatever it is, just take a deep breath and slow down. And I wonder if we could get in a practice as Christians who live in an age of outrage to slow down and rehearse the gospel to ourselves. And like what response does this really deserve? Why am I going to speak out on this? Is it because I want others to see me as part of their tribe or whatever? Or is there grace here for whatever this is? Is there grace? Is there forgiveness if it wasn't an offense? I mean, take the Donald Trump thing. When he was confronted on it, he took it down, and whatever his rationale was, I'm a Red Cross doctor or whatever, and anyways, he just keeps digging a hole. But think about that. Can grace be given to him if he honestly didn't know what he was triggering, and people got to him and said, "Man, that's actually heresy. You got to take it down," and he takes it down, but people won't let him off the hook. Josh Howerton, who's got a pastor's a church in Dallas, Texas, I heard him on a podcast talking about thinking through leaders in this way and how to judge them. And he appeals to the Old Testament, King Josiah, and then you have Jehu, and then you have Jezebel. And he's saying Josiah is a righteous king. He makes good decisions. And when you look at him, that this is a good model for a kind of righteous leadership. Jehu, pretty good, makes some mistakes, but he's not doing it in a bad way, like he's walking in all this evil in the steps of his fathers. And then Jezebel is just pure evil, right? And he's like, I wonder if when we look at someone like Donald Trump, he's definitely not Josiah. He's not Jezebel either, so he's probably in this camp of Jehu. So give the dude a break. If he's gonna mess up, challenge him on it if you want to, but just recognize he's not the pastor in chief. So hold him to the right kind of standard. And Jehu, I thought that was a really interesting conversation. Before you jump out there, how does the gospel color the response? Because the ultimate goal for us pastorally is we want people to know Christ and to know His gospel.
Yeah, and I think social media has again created this somewhat, but I think a lot of that comes from. This is my opinion. It comes from what kind of took place before social media, I guess, or as social media was getting started. I would go back and look at the years, but the 24-hour news cycle has somewhat created this. Used to if it would have been a a picture, we call it memes now, but if something would have been drawn or something before social media and before AI and all that, if something would have been presented in some way as a potential harmful thing or offendable thing, you had to wait till the 5 o'clock news to be able to see that. There was a cycle where there was a story had to develop and build. It had to be written and then put out there. And I wonder if, well, we know that some of that created at least some barriers and hesitancy before you put something on the air. If there's a story that happens at 4:30, news is at 5, a lot of those stories wouldn't make unless you had time to do the research and the background and all that. And if it didn't make the 5 o'clock, it may have made the 9 o'clock if they had time to build that. Well, you don't get that now.
It's immediate.
The immediacy of broadcasts and news with social media, and anybody and everybody is a reporter and a journalist now. Everybody has got their own channel, their own everything. Well, there's a need even to hurry up. Got to get it out there immediately. And I think a lot of that's affected people, not just in creating a news story, but also creating the offense that comes with it, or at least expressing my offense.
Right.
And so when something happens, it's an immediate, I've got to say something now because of what I saw. I have to say something now. It's what we call a performative pressure.
Yes.
I'm under pressure to perform. I've got to perform my duty as a Christian spokesperson, as a pastor, as a counselor, as a theologian. I've got to perform quickly because people are going to expect it. Or I got to say something. No matter, and again, whatever the Donald Trump thing or whatever's been out there, it doesn't make any difference, especially when with political leader, something is expressed. You got to jump out there fast. You got to get out there quick, because your people are going to start asking questions, and if they're asking questions and you haven't said anything, then they're going to wonder where you stand and why you haven't said anything. You got to hurry up and perform.
Yeah. And
it's a difficulty as a pastor to live in that kind of world.
It is. And you and I talk about this all the time. Like, who cares what we say? I don't even care half the time.
I know.
But then, like, it's the people. I have a platform. I've got to speak out on because I have a platform. I got a platform, and it's like we're too big for our own britches, man. Like, people are really hanging on the edge of their seats, waiting for whatever you're going to say. Because here's the thing: whatever you say, some people are going to affirm, and some people are going to reject.
Absolutely.
So it's like this perpetual cycle of, like you're saying, performative. Well, now it's their mission to tear you down because they don't agree with what you just said. So it just, keeps it going.
And we understand there's some responsibility for a platform. When you're given influence, and God-given influence as pastors in particular, and you have a voice and you have a platform for that voice, there's a weight of responsibility that comes with that. Certainly, we need to shepherd. We have a stewardship. There's certain things we need to say, certain things we need to help our people know how to think about certain things. But again, there ought to be at least some level of patience that comes with that, and grace, and then step out and speak. And I just think there's a responsibility you have for a platform, but there's also a responsibility to know what to do to shepherd and steward that platform well.
Right.
And I don't think we always do it right. I'm certainly not the perfect example of this, but I'm just saying pastorally, there's a point at which we have to go, and that's a good word, rehearse the gospel first before I move out into something and realize, look, I'm not the most offended person in the world. I shouldn't be.
Right.
There's a way to approach this. So anyway, that's good pastoral counsel.
Well, how do we navigate then the difference between an offense, a true personal offense, or maybe a slight, something like that?
Yeah.
An insult up against true sin or some kind of moral evil that it would be wrong for Christians to sit this one out, How do we navigate that? Because I don't think the gospel is teaching us to not be easily angered. Scripture says that, right? And to show restraint and walk in wisdom. But how do we navigate so this was an insult. I could address it. I could confront it as a sinful action toward me.
Yeah.
Or do I ignore it? How do we navigate?
Yeah, that's a hard thing. So I would let me address the social media thing real quickly, and then I'll move it. I think that's easier. I think that's easier to answer when it comes down to personal relationship stuff. I think that's easier to answer. If there's an offense between me and you, I need to address that offense, right? Jesus tells us to do that. Yeah. If there's an offense within the church, I got to have a very difficult meeting. I've got to have a conversation with somebody, or somebody has said something that I know about, and there's a relationship. I think this is a little easier to deal with that way. So that we can handle, and I think there's a if we'll agree to do that, if we will take that challenge and address and be honest with each other and gracious. But the social media thing is a little different to me. It's like, all right, back in the day, I would equate this somewhat to, and we create this for ourselves. Remember back in the day when it was just a landline, right, at your house? You got this phone on the hook with this long, giant cord. The one in the kitchen anyway had a long, giant cord on it.
Probably yellow and
or green.
Yeah.
So you get this phone call, right? And you're in the middle of supper, something. You're in the middle of dinner, in the middle of an important conversation. The thing rings on the wall. Now, I remember there were times that we'd go, "No, nobody's getting that.
Yeah,
don't get that." We mean don't get it. We live in a culture now where it's immediate. That thing rings, got to answer. The text, I got to answer. I got to look at it. The phone call, I got to answer. We've created, why?
Yeah.
Why? We've created that for ourselves. Why do we have to do that? They don't have to know where I am. Nobody needs to know what I think at this moment about this thing or about that thing.
Right.
And nobody needs to be tracking me down at every moment. Well, they didn't used to.
All the time.
Right, all the time. So I just think we've created it with the cell phone, and the social media, I think, is partly a response to that. So we go on social media. We're on it all the time. Some people are not. But some people are just constantly, and to get all the social media things pushed to your phone. Right, everything, bam, 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 bam. It's just constantly going off. Got to go, and when you get it, you got to immediately respond. Got to immediately say something. Got to immediately do something. Why?
Yeah.
Why have we done this to ourselves? Where I wish sometimes we could go back to the landline, or at least that same philosophy to go. Yeah, I don't need to look at that. Yeah. Nobody needs to know my answer
and
right
at this point. It's interesting. You know, people they'll text you or they'll call you or whatever, and they'll be offended if you don't immediately reply. You know, and that pressure gets put on you.
Yeah, it's
you
like
see something
you saw. I know you saw it. You had to have seen it immediately, and then now I've got there's a pressure to perform, a pressure to go respond and do something. So I just think we've created that in our entire world. Yeah, especially people our age and younger. People tend to be a good bit older than us. They don't worry about all that. Still don't answer the phone if they don't want to, you know. But people our age and younger just feel that pressure. Yeah. And our younger people feel it more and more because of the phone and social media.
You didn't use this term, but exactly what you're talking about is the accessibility to someone.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. Over the weekend, so I had a chance to preach Sunday, so I was preparing and finishing everything up over the weekend. I had a big family celebration over the weekend. All the things, and I received an email about some situation, and I registered it. I'm like, I can deal with that next week. Well, then I got a text message about that same situation, and I didn't answer either one of them. And I knew I was going to see this person at church on Sunday, and I was ready to say, yeah, let me tell you why I didn't respond to that, because there's a whole life context around. I could have been all, torn up about, what am I going to say? How am I going to deal with this? It wasn't urgent. It was presented to me as an urgent matter, but it really wasn't. Yeah. And so it just took a little discernment. But the accessibility, it doesn't matter if it's text, email, social media, straight up phone call.
Yeah.
You always feel that pressure, like I got to respond to
this
right
right
now.
Of course, there's a sense of responsibility, right? I need to respond. I need to. But we create that I don't know what it is, that thing in us that makes us feel like pressure in us. We have to say something. We have to respond. And again, I don't mean to make light of it, but you kind of address the issue. I think dealing with an offense or what to deal with, I think is easier relationally, face to face. We know that. But when it comes to this whole world of social media, it makes it a whole lot harder because everything is just out there. Everybody else is saying something, so I better say something too.
Yeah.
And if I don't, then I'm not performing based on the comparisons that people are going to make between me and everybody else. And so it just creates a pressure. And I hate that. And I don't like it personally, but we have to deal with it.
In that context, there's not that in social media. It's like you want to just respond back and say, hey, pick up the phone and call me. I know you got my number, so call me. You going to pop off like that on social media?
Yeah.
Call me.
Yeah, just let's have a conversation.
You know me better than that.
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes I think there is that desire to maybe correct an issue, like if it's an offense or if it's an insult or if it's a slight or if it's an allegation or something like that. We also feel that impulse, I think, as believers, because we're for the truth, that we want to correct things that for whatever reason it has come to us and people are offended by it, and there may not even be any truth to it.
Yeah.
It's just
That's right. There's a difference between a true, when you know it's true, a moral wrong being done to you or somebody else, and you know it's true, and maybe your pride has been
right
taking a ding. You're like, that hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a difference in the two, and I think what we end up doing, we talked about a second ago, we flatten everything so that everything is a wound. Everything is a wound, a personal wound. And you feel it deeply, whether it's said about you or not. It's just I gotta go out there and say something. I gotta deal with it. I gotta call that person in my office. I gotta handle it right now. I gotta post something on social media, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to be discerning to know the difference between a moral, ethical wrong that needs to be dealt with right now and something that I need to be patient, let go, or if it's just offended me and I just need to be okay with being offended sometimes. Golly, man. Sometimes I'm just offended.
Yeah.
I just live with it. Live with the offense, man. I don't got to tell anybody. I don't have to make a big deal out of it. Just
make room for the gospel.
Yeah.
I mean, people get offended. We mishear things, we misunderstand things. And if we short circuit that gospel opportunity for reconciliation and forgiveness, can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, you said this and it hurt my feelings, or you did this, blah, blah. And my response is, never in a million years would I have said that to hurt you. I'm so sorry it struck you that way. And so to not have that, like we're talking about that personal interaction, well, it removes the opportunity for apology because it wasn't intentional, and it short circuits forgiveness. Somebody who's offended recognizes, oh, well, maybe I jumped to conclusions and I thought something more was at play and it wasn't. I'm sorry for thinking that way. So there should be this mutuality of reconciliation and forgiveness, even if the quote unquote offense is imaginary. It's not. It's just, man, how that struck me, and I should know better, but it gets in your mind.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So I got a good friend. He's got a kind of a big platform. I love him, known him a long time, and they had this post, and I commented on it. A really snarky comment, and made fun of them and said some just crazy, stupid stuff. Because I knew he'd laugh at it.
Yeah.
That was about a week ago, and I hadn't heard a thing. So I'm thinking,
oh no!
Either A, they haven't seen it.
Yeah.
B, it upset them, which I cannot imagine that is the case. So I'm opting to believe they hadn't even seen it. They probably get so many comments on things like they don't even look at their comments anymore. But anyways, that can get in your mind is what I'm saying, and it could get all twisted as the offendee and also as the offender.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, did I offend somebody?
Right. Did I go too far?
Did I go too far? Yeah. You start thinking stuff that's really, really not there. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 essentially talks about not taking every word to heart. Don't listen to don't pay attention to everything everybody's saying. Because if you do, you're going to find out that they're probably talking bad about you. It's my paraphrase. And then he says, but you do realize you're the one that's talking bad about somebody else all the time too. And it's like, really? He said this way, for in your heart you know that many times you yourself have cursed others.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, pot, kettle.
Yeah, it turns it right back
pot.
around. Well, I think that's really good. All right, so maybe more. Let's talk further. We'll close this in just a little bit. We got a little bit more to go, but there's some things that we need to talk about. But what else does a Christian do to at least respond? Okay, I'm trying to be discerning enough, trying to figure out moral wrong, or am I just offended and I shouldn't be?
Yep.
Or maybe I've got my pride in a wad and I'm just like, that shouldn't be. It's like, I'm thinking too highly of myself. I just need to back off a little bit or whatever. Okay, be discerning about that kind of stuff. And then what? Then what else?
Well, I mean, everything's theological, isn't it? I think you gotta discern, is this a sin to confront? You mentioned that, or a slight to us that are just going to absorb it and let water roll off a duck's back, or is this something that there might be something there, and there's an injustice that's been done to you? You could confront it, or do you entrust yourself to a creator? First Peter is a wonderful book for this. Now, his context is the suffering and persecution of believers. But he talks about how much suffering is God's will, and that you can and should entrust yourself, especially in times of suffering, if we can unpack that in times of offense, persecution, that you can entrust yourself to God who cares for you, who loves you, and who knows you. And I don't think that's our first instinct. I really don't. I don't think our first instinct is to say, you know what, Lord, you got a purpose in this, and man, I'm gonna commit myself to you even more. I'm gonna pray to you. It's almost like the instinct to respond and to correct eclipses that prayer and that slowing down that James is talking about. But really just recognizing I belong to God. It doesn't really matter what people say to me. And Lord, I trust your providence in my life. And if this has come to me and you mean it for good, like Genesis 50:20 says, people mean it for evil, but you mean it for good, then help me mature in that. Help me find wisdom in that, and not make a bigger mess of things by trying to engage it. And
that's one of the things I've tried to teach my boys, and I'm still learning too. I'm better at it than I used to be, but I try to teach my boys is to remember that you have nothing to prove to anybody. That's one of the things that has helped me hold my tongue in a number of different situations, whether it's personal, whether it's work related, or whatever it might be, or on social media. You don't have anything to prove to anybody. Just that has helped me slow down a lot more than just about anything, is to remind myself of that. Don't think you're somebody,
right,
and that you've got the right opinion always, and that if you'll say the right thing, you prove yourself to be a hero, or you prove yourself to be right, or you prove yourself to be wise, or you prove whatever. You don't have anything to prove to anybody. I'm who I am because of who God's made me to be. I'm secure in my relationship with Him. Even if I'm offended, I don't have to be right, and I don't have to. The world doesn't have to know that I'm right and they're wrong. There are times when that may be the case. There are times that I may need to. I want to say something, feel like the influence or the platform I've been given requires that. But I don't have anything to prove to anybody. And the impulse is prove that you're a man, prove that you're a strong Christian. Prove that you're a theologian. Prove that you know more of the Bible than they do. Prove that you are right and they're wrong.
Holy.
Prove, whatever. And I get that. That impulse is real. I feel it. And probably, I don't know if everybody, I think that's an impulse that men have, this desire to be stronger, to prove ourselves in front of other men, to back somebody down, to whatever. I get that. I feel that. But if we can live that way, I don't have anything to prove to anybody. It will help slow us down a little bit, and I've begun to learn it. And really, that's a gospel impulse that comes from understanding who I am in His eyes, and I'm confident in who He knows I am, who's making me to be, and so I don't have to prove anything to the world.
I love that.
So that's at least pastorally, a pastor preaching to his own self. That has helped me more than anything.
That is pastoral. It's very personal. And you mentioned this a little bit earlier. How much of this conversation, honestly, is the dynamic between whether or not we're going to respond in pride or we're going to respond in humility? Here's the thing. Even if you're right, doesn't mean you have to prove that you're right. you can be humble and not make it more than it is, as if you have a right to tell people how right you are.
Yes.
And
I think some of that goes back to James, right?
Yeah.
Just be slow to speak. Be slow to speak. You don't have to engage in everything. You really don't.
Yeah.
And we're not the best at it. I'm not the best at it either. But I think that's something that will help us. I don't know. Maybe to disengage a little bit.
Yep. And in trusting ourselves to God and disengaging is also theological, but it's very practical too. It's saying that God is God and we are not God. We don't have to settle every wrong. We don't understand the depths of justice and injustice like God does. Vengeance is not ours to take. The Bible says it's God's. All of those things we recognize as the creature. We are not the creator. He has a prerogative we don't have. He has a vantage point that we don't have. So I don't have to take up the cause of feeling like I've got to correct everything.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And settle every wrong. That's for God to determine. And Jesus modeled that for us.
That's right. I was about to say he did the same thing, right? I was reading I'm reading the book of Acts right now. I've been kind of immersed in the book of Acts over and over again over the last couple of months or so. I'm loving it. But this is one of the things that Peter talks about in his sermons. God gives up his son to be delivered according to God's own predetermined plan. And at the same time, Jesus let people nail him to a cross. He didn't have to, but he did in a way of kind of giving himself over to the plan of God. No matter the pain that it brought him, he understood that principle of giving himself over to his Father, and his Father would act on his behalf. His Father would get vengeance for his own self and his Son, and he modeled that for us. And I think we need to learn that too. God is a God of vengeance. Yes, God will make it all right in the end. So if you've been wrongly offended, and again, there are times that we have to defend the gospel and whatever. We need to do that, and there are right times for that. But there are times that I might be offended, and maybe I should have been offended. Maybe somebody did do something wrong to me. God will work all that out in the end.
Agree.
He'll make all that right. And I don't have to be the one to make that right.
Agree. Well, it has a lot to do with identity. Like you're saying, are you comfortable in your identity as a child of God? And as a child of God, your Father, and you said it so well. Your Father is in control. He's going to make things right in His time, and we can trust Him. We put down a couple of ways in which this gospel focus toward offense and outrage, it's not passivity. You talked about that. It's not weakness or passivity to not repay evil for evil. You understand what I'm saying? It's not weakness. Jesus was not weak.
That's right.
There is a meekness that, you could advance your rights, you could defend yourself, but it's not always. It's also not always necessary, and that you can't mistake following that kind of humble lifestyle response as, well, I'm just a passive person, or I'm not.
Right.
I don't want to confront people or whatever. Really, it flows from a transformed posture. We wrote these 4 things down. I'm curious what you think about it. If Christians were less fragile, more discerning, more restrained, and more trusting, how would this issue of outrage and offense really be different for the church at large?
Well, it doesn't bring immediate resolve to conflict if you're just simply, like you said, less fragile. The conflict can still be there. The offense is still there.
Right.
It doesn't lend itself necessarily always to kind of an immediate resolution to some kind of problem. But I think if we can exercise those things as our first impulse, again, less fragile. That's one of the things I'm trying to teach my boys right now too, and myself is we need to be strong mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, that's big.
Exhibit a strength emotionally that we don't just melt emotionally when there's an offense or something happens to us. We don't want to be men that approach life that way. We want to be strong emotionally. So less fragile is one way to approach that. More discerning. This is the one I'm. The third one is the one that I'm more probably interested in for myself. It kind of resounds in my own spirit, is more restrained. I just think sometimes just shut up, just restrain yourself from speaking.
Yeah.
I have to tell myself that quite often.
Yeah.
You don't have to speak. Just stop talking. You get yourself in less trouble. You just shut up.
And more restrained emotionally.
Yes.
Like you just talked about emotional strength and kind of that. But to be more restrained emotionally and not let feelings trump everything else.
Yeah, don't get caught in an emotional frenzy that then you feel like you got to just be more restrained.
Because those two things are absolutely tied. Jesus said, from the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yeah.
So we talk about being more restrained. There's a heart issue, get our feelings under control, because if we don't, then there's a mouth issue, and we got to deal with that too.
And that compounds the problem. Yeah.
Because people may not know the volcano that's going on inside of us, but once it spews out of us, they're like, "Oh, okay." And then you got to walk that stuff back.
That's a great point. And then the last one was more trusting. And no, it does not bring immediate resolve to everything, but it can create a more patient way to deal with the conflict and hopefully come to a more graceful resolve instead of just feeding into an outrage that's so immediate and impulsive. I had a couple other thoughts we were talking about. I just wrote this down a second ago. I don't know, maybe more pastoral counsel from me, just my own personal issues with myself. People often feel this need to impulsively respond. And again, we call that kind of performative pressure. My counsel would be careful not to let other people, or especially social media. I know that we've hammered on that quite a bit. I just think that's created a lot of this.
I agree.
Don't let that social media world and other people shape you into that performative pressure. You got to resist that.
You do.
I just think there's something to say for don't get backed into a corner like that so quickly. And part of that comes from just again understanding your identity and not having to prove yourself. That will help you be released from some of that constraint and impulsivity. I just say don't let the world shape your and pressure you into that kind of immediate response. People have often said if you don't publicly state your outrage, then, like you said, you're complicit. Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier. We've mentioned a few times anyway the Trump's meme or whatever he posted or reposted. This was my thing. It's what I told my wife at home the other day. She was like, I was telling her about all the people that have responded, and both the secular and Christian and all across the board on social media have responded to this. It's been in the news. It's been everywhere. It just created such a phrase. And my response to Nikki was, she was like, I was saying, I'm not going to say anything about all that. I feel that kind of pressure. Should I? I'm not really sure. And so finally I just said, you know what? People that know me know what I think about that.
I agree.
They know me. They know that's idiotic. It was stupid. What Trump did, you call it sacrilegious, you call it immoral, call it unethical, call it whatever you want. It's dumb.
Unwise.
Why? That's so dumb. Yeah. Why would he even post that? But, again, I didn't feel the need to perform where I stood. I wanted to. I felt like I wanted to, but I just thought, why? Why would I? It's dumb. And everybody that knows me already knows what I think about that anyway. They know where I stand when it comes to heresy or when it comes to some public figure making somebody's stupid statement like that. Why do I need to perform? I don't need to perform. He did plenty on his own. Yeah. He's the one who performed. Right. I don't feel like I have a need to say something. Does that always the case? No. There are certain things that I felt like I probably need to say something. I'm trying my best not to be constrained too much by that public pressure.
That's good.
Even by my own friends, people.
Were you thinking about? Because I'm curious. Because I did the same thing. I had the instinct to say, "Well, I'm going to say a little something on," but then I was like, "Why?
Yeah.
Why don't people know what I think?" So if there is that performative pressure, for whom, like if we were to speak to something, who's our audience? Like, to me, I think at least there's a layer in which before I post anything on social media, I think to myself, what's my church how's my church family going to process this? Because these are the people that I'm in life community with in the gospel, and I don't want to be misunderstood by any of them and have to deal with all that stuff as a servant leader among them. And of course, I think about my family as well, but who cares what everybody else thinks?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if I say something,
that's right.
Because if somebody, in this case, if they already hate Donald Trump, then they're looking for a collective of voices like, yeah, man, see, Trump's evil and all that kind of stuff. Maybe he's actually a genius, that he recognizes that bad press is better than no press.
Well, he gets a lot of that, doesn't he?
I mean, I'm not saying he's a genius. I'm just saying it makes you wonder, someone at his level, is he just like, hey, watch this.
I'm just going to throw this out there, see what happens.
Watch how this
maybe
creates a global conversation.
Yeah, there's not many people who can do that like that.
But anything he does will do that. And it's around the world. But I process that with you because I'm thinking, I don't know, I don't always stop to consider who's the audience and who am I trying to speak to and who am I trying to impress?
Yeah.
Where's the pressure coming from? Because you and I saw a lot of pastors speak out on that thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, is this the thing now? Does a pastor have to address this very thing, or do our people not realize that we understand what that is? Yeah. Stupid, unwise,
and
sacrilegious, whatever.
Yeah, and I just don't.
I gotta say that to prove it.
And if I have to do that, here's the thing. I thought about this the other day. If I have to do that, I'd do nothing but stay on social media.
There's no end in sight.
You can't.
100%.
I'd be doing that all day long.
Yep.
Because there's stupid stuff that comes across social media all day long. It's immoral things. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier. I wrote some of these things down. You think about it. Social media, you see all the time attacks on biblical authority or biblical doctrine.
I did comment on a post on that, though.
Did you?
I did.
Well, that stuff's everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I take the time to address every single doctrinal issue that comes across my social media feed, that's all I'd be doing. But partly because my algorithm is partly that, right? Just because I enjoy theology, I enjoy arguments about the Bible. Like, but if I were to comment on everything, like, well, he was wrong, this dude said it wrong, I'd be on there all the time doing just that.
Can I make just a point on that? Because you're right. It astounds me, like, how people have the time to be constantly posting. I'm sitting here thinking, I barely have enough time to check my email during the day.
Yeah,
working.
I feel
and
that.
I'm like, but y'all are tearing up the social media space, posting all day long.
Like, what are you
doing? You know, because you're right. There's no end in sight.
No, if it's doctrinal, biblical, if it's ethical, right? There's all kinds of stuff out there. People say stuff constantly about, pride issues or trans issues or all kinds of things, or a church shifting, the theologically, morally to a different thing. That's happening all the time. And if I were to go, okay, I got to say something about this church, or about that pastor, or about this pride issue, or about that thing, or about that whatever. I mean, I saw the other day, there's one of these memes. It's not a meme. It's actually an article, and I've seen it repeated multiple times, where it's that the Prime Minister of Canada or some whatever person commented on the what to many people is known as LGBT. It was LGBTQ and then LGBTQIA, and then it's become LGBTQIA+. Well, she was talking about it, and she gave a whole bunch more letters. I mean, it was like strong. I don't know. It looked like 15 letters. She referred to this. I was like, holy cow! All these, and I thought I could go in there and post something like, I'm gonna respond to that. Well, there's no. I mean, good Lord, it would be all day if that. So ethical issues, blasphemy, like you think about, there's artists out there all the time that say they were saved and now they're not saved, or say they're saved, they're deconstructing their faith, or you got artists out there that are vulgar and all kinds of things. You see things come across your, so I could post on every bit of that kind of stuff. It's always out there. I need to say something, right? Politics. We've already talked about Trump, but anything in politics is that way. Yeah. This whole, this impulse to say something about nationalism or Christian nationalism or, Republican stuff or Democratic stuff or healthcare or, all kinds of those things, border issues and whatever. It's politics. It's anything in Christianity, like a fallen pastor, a pastor who's given to immorality, cheats on his wife. I could say stuff about that. Worship style, worship preference that comes across. We should do this or we should do translation issues always coming across. Well, the NIV says this and the King James says this, and so you put people in a ring and immediately in a social media ring they start battling it out. And I want to jump in some of those things and go, okay, I'm going to say something. It's that, or it's social justice issue. I mean, those are just a handful of things. I could respond and do. Should I respond to that stuff? It could be all day long. Yeah. And what's going to determine what I talk about, what I don't, or what I respond to and what I don't? That, to me, that's the hardest thing. Is it, okay, if you're going to say something about this, why not that? Yeah. If you're going to make yourself that pastor that comments on this, you're going to create for yourself an expectation on behalf of your people that are going to go, hey, this thing was posted too. Why didn't you say something about that?
Something about it. Yep.
Well, it's performative.
Probably never even saw it.
Yeah, it's performative, and I just get to the point where I get tired of that. And the last thing I was thinking about pastoral counsel. You can tell I have a lot of thoughts about all this. Another thing is I would caution our people, and myself included, be careful not to use a real issue, a real offense, and create an anonymous post that uses that real offense as a foil.
Mm-hmm. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Somebody gets offended by something personally. It could be, I got offended by my friend. I got offended by my coworker. I got offended by my wife. She said this. Couldn't believe that. So I'm going on social media, and I'm going to mention the name. I'm not going to say the name, but I'm going to mention a scenario that matches pretty close what just happened, and I'm going to create it as anonymous. Just stop.
Subtexting everything.
Just stop.
Yep.
Just stop.
Yep.
I'm speaking to myself too. I can be given to that impulse too. I'll give you an example. All right, and then we'll close the podcast. So years ago, I was a pastor in a former church, and we had something I was trying to lead our church through was we had a real need to use our sanctuary on Sunday morning for rehearsal, to rehearse for the worship service, make sure sound levels and everything were right, and all that. We just I felt the need to be able to do that for the sake of a worship service that was planned, right? But there's a problem with that. We had a Sunday school class that met in the sanctuary, and so there was no time for rehearsal. They met in there, they taught. So we couldn't get in there until Sunday school was over, and you had about a 10-minute turnaround. It was just no time to really rehearse any of that.
Yeah.
So I went to the Sunday school class. It was all planned, but I went to the Sunday school class, and I stood in front of them one Sunday, and I said, okay, I'm going to ask you to consider moving to our choir room for Sunday school. I know that's a change for you, and I appreciate that, and I understand it. But I'm going to ask you to relocate. Now, it's just right across the hall. That's where it was. It just wouldn't be in the sanctuary anymore. That would free up opportunity for us to be able to kind of rehearse a little bit, at least give us 20 minutes to do sound checks and all that, make sure the microphones are working and the computer, all that stuff's ready to go. And there would be nothing in the choir room at that time anyway. When they got done, the choir could go in there and prepare for the worship, but it would just be better. Well, the class was not happy with that. Not happy with that. And as a matter of fact, one man in that class, he's gone on to be the Lord now. His name was Billy, and I loved Billy. Billy and I were friends, and we could talk to each other. He was angry at me. He was angry. He was highly offended by my suggestion. And he told me, he said, the reason why, I mean, he even brought it up in that meeting. He said, in the choir room, there's steps over there. You got to get up 3 or 4 steps. And he was an older man. He said, I don't have to go up steps in here. And I don't want to. I'm not going across there. I'm not moving. I'm not moving. Yeah, I'll leave the church. I'm not moving class.
Wow.
I mean, he was upset with me. Understood that. I talked to him. I engaged him personally on the issue, and he was highly offended. And he said some things that kind of offended me that in the process, and I kind of took that to heart. I could have, and I'm just saying, this was in one of those instances where I felt the need to kind of to draw back a little bit. And so I could have gone on social media and created that whole scenario and talked about people need to whatever, obey the, respect their pastors, or I could create some kind of issue.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we ended up moving the Sunday school class in a few weeks. We gave him time to plan ahead. We moved the Sunday school class. And a couple of months later, maybe a few months later, Billy called me in a worship service. And he said, and he just, tears in his eyes, he said, I need to apologize to you. I said, what is that about? What do you need to apologize? He said, I just need to apologize. I said some things to you I shouldn't have said. And I said I would never leave. I wouldn't go to that class. I would leave because there were steps in that choir room. He said, I got home that day and I got up on my tractor. He had a big tractor. He said, I got up on my tractor, climbed those steps to get up in that tractor, which I do multiple times a day, and realized I do this every day.
Wow.
And here I am complaining about going to Sunday school and not wanting to climb stairs.
Wow.
He said, I felt very convicted. He came back to me and apologized. Now, here's what I mean by relational. That was a conflict in which he was offended and I got offended. But relationally, we were able to work through it. Had I gone to social media, had he been a social media person, had he gone to social media, we could have ripped each other apart and created this sides. People taking his side, people taking my side. Pastors would have jumped on me, my side, going, you ought not be. We could have created a frenzy. We didn't. It was personal, and it was relational. But it wasn't easy, but we were able to work through it that way. I just say that's where it matters. That's where how we should deal with offenses is the way he dealt with that.
Yeah.
And I just think we ought to handle that differently when it comes to putting things out there publicly and creating this emotional frenzy for everybody to start choosing sides.
I agree. And, you got to give room for the Holy Spirit, give room for the gospel. Again, if it was an egregious sin, you could have confronted him on it.
Sure.
But, man, that's an incredible story. It really is. Because you could have also gone on social media and was like, man, I can't believe this guy said if I changed the room, he wouldn't go there. But I just drove by his house and saw him climb up all these steps on his tractor. What gives? You know?
And I knew because he pulled tractors he did tractor pulls. So I knew he had big tractors and all that kind of stuff. But he was gracious, very, very gracious in coming back and saying, I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. I felt convicted. I just use that story as a way to say it could have really come to outrage with both of us. And although he expressed some of that outrage to begin with, the Holy Spirit softened his heart and mine too, and we were able to forgive and move on. We were great friends after that. Yeah. And it just, anyway, that's cool. But my point is, don't use a real scenario and create an anonymous scenario for it and then put it out there. I just think you're doing damage. Just stop. Just stop.
Agree.
All right. That's
good, man.
Age of Outrage, man.
Trying to navigate it.
It's hard.
It's just...
It's hard. It's not
because we're all in it. We're embedded in it now.
We are.
And that's...
whether we like it or not.
That's right.
All right, so let's close the podcast with a separate section that we call, and this is our very first...
Most
closing segment, for our podcast forever, many years ago, is Did You Know? So it's something that is totally off topic, something that you may or may not have known.
Yeah.
Did you know? Do you got one?
I do.
All right, give it to us.
Did you know that saffron is the most expensive spice in the world?
What is saffron?
Saffron is
okay. No, I did not know this, but what is that?
It's like
I've heard of
$5,000 or $10,000 for like a kilogram or something. It's ridiculous. Expensive.
What do you use it in?
Well, if you eat it just as it is, it's like this little stringy little thing. You eat it, and it's very bitter. But when you put it in, and it becomes this savory and a little sweet. You get it in some Indian food. You get it in some European dishes and stuff. Mostly in Indian food, you'll see saffron. It's red, but when it dissolves, it turns yellow. So if you see that kind of yellow look, Saffron, very, very good. And this is what I wanted to know. Did you know if you ate too much of it, it's toxic and it will kill you?
No, I did not know that. It's a good thing to know that.
Have you ever had saffron?
No, not that I know of.
That you know of?
No.
Yeah.
I've
probably have. You just
I've heard
didn't know
that
it was in there.
I think I've heard like chefs will use that, but to my knowledge, I've never had it.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I know that now, because if I really liked it,
yeah.
not only, well, let me say it this way: if it's that expensive, you
Well,
probably couldn't afford enough of it to kill yourself to eating too
probably
much
not.
of it.
But I did discover you like to store home goods,
Yeah, I do.
which I do as well. You can go in Home Goods. They got a little bottle of saffron. It's like $30, man. It's got like 3 strings of the stuff in there, but you can get it and you can try it out. But it's
maybe
nice.
I've eaten it, I just don't realize it.
Maybe so, but because it is super expensive, I'm sure it's not used widely.
Probably
but
not.
you can a little bit goes a long way with saffron, which is good. But anyways, most expensive spice in the world.
Okay,
saffron.
did not know that. All right, here's my did you know?
All right.
Did you know that the human brain does not have pain receptors itself?
Really?
It of course has nerves, but it does not have pain receptors in the
Yeah.
brain. This is why you can operate on the brain and the patient be awake. Is it doesn't feel pain. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Like the thing that's operating your entire body, controlling the pain receptors of your spine, nerves going down your spine, all that kind of stuff, it doesn't itself have pain receptors.
All those nerves in there and no pain.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Receptors.
Yeah, so
That's wild.
Yeah, I used to work in surgery years ago, and so we would do brain surgery, and I say we like I was doing something.
The royal we.
Yeah, we. I mean, I was standing there. I was standing there helping and passing instruments to the one actually doing the surgery. So I didn't have any real point, well, whatever. I was doing my job. But I got a chance to watch a lot of that and see sometimes surgery with a patient wide awake and you just deaden the scalp. That hurts. But once you get past the scalp into the skull, the brain itself, when you're operating on the brain, doesn't have those pain receptors. So sometimes they can operate.
That's what makes a concussion so dangerous, huh? Because you don't feel it in there.
I don't know. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I'm not sure. I just know when they go to cutting on it, it doesn't. You can't feel it, and so they go, boring holes in your brain, and you can't feel it. But oftentimes they'll leave people awake. I mean, that was one of the early surgeries. They would drill a hole in somebody's head, like Civil War type, way beyond that. Drill a hole in people's head, and they keep them awake. And it was like, that must be torture. Well, it's actually not. Even now today, they do the same thing, digging around in your brain just to make sure they don't hit a certain area or burn something that they shouldn't, so they can keep the patient awake and go, okay, talk, count, what color is that, whatever they can, so that they make sure they're engaging the right parts of the brain as they're operating. But
I mean, how do you know, if you're cutting out something from someone, how do you know the cascading effect of what that could be?
I don't know.
This little piece right here, we're going to take this out.
Well,
and all of a sudden you're blind in your left eye. Or something like that.
I don't know. And to be honest with you, somebody had to be the first dude to do that. Like, okay, let's just go ahead, cut in there, and let's see if it hurts.
Yeah.
Somebody had to be the first one. And then they realized, okay, dude, it's not hurting. Okay, we're okay. But
actually, they probably did a lot of that on mental health patients way back when. Saw some kind of I don't know if it was a documentary or something, but yeah, they were almost torturing these folks, trying experiments on them, and how, and some of that was going through their eyeball to get to their brain to change their personality.
Well, that would change mine. It would change my personality. In the moment, it would change my personality. Anyway.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, did you know? Okay.
Wow.
Oh, this is a Gospel Rain podcast. We've had fun. Hopefully, you are not outraged today.
Right.
Hopefully, you're letting some things go. Let God have it. Don't feel like you got to say something. Anyway, we'll be back next time for the Gospel Rain podcast.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Gospel Rain. Find us online at germantownbaptist.org/Gospel Rain for more information and a full list of our episodes. We hope you'll join us for another conversation next week on Gospel Rain.